Ethan Roth was used to the sound of disappointment, though it came in many forms, sometimes in his father's clipped, measured tone over dinner, sometimes in the hollow silence between his mother's polite nods, and sometimes, like today, in the shrill scratch of a red pen carving another F onto his exam paper. Halstead Academy's classroom smelled faintly of varnished oak, old money, and quiet pressure. Every student there had a legacy, a last name carved into plaques, scholarships, or stadiums. Ethan's name was carved into Roth Tower downtown, 23 stories of glass and steel built by his grandfather's ruthless ambition, but even that tower couldn't shield him from the shame of failure. The test sat in front of him like an accusation, 40 multiple-choice questions and 4 essays, each one proof that no amount of private tutors, prep courses, or expensive software could make algebra stick in his brain. He had studied, at least in the way that meant staring at a book until the words swam, but when the test started, the numbers rearranged themselves into a cruel riddle. As the final bell rang and chairs scraped against the floor, Ethan stayed frozen in his seat, staring at the paper until Mrs. Keene, his math teacher, asked if he was all right. He mumbled something about not feeling well and slipped out into the hallway, his hands shoved deep into his blazer pockets. Outside, the hall was empty except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional muffled laughter from students already free for the day. He knew the driver wouldn't be there for another 15 minutes, his father insisted on punctuality, and in Roth terms, punctuality meant exactly on time, never early, never late, as if showing up early was somehow desperate. So Ethan wandered, dragging his feet across the checkered tile floor, until he reached the east wing, where the hall smelled faintly of lemon and floor polish. That was where he saw Mr. Coleman. Tall, broad-shouldered, with skin the color of polished mahogany and a mop in his hand, the janitor moved with the unhurried rhythm of someone who understood that some things took as long as they took. Ethan had seen him before, mostly in the background, sweeping under trophy cases, fixing a flickering light, but had never spoken to him. Today, Coleman glanced up from his work, caught Ethan's slouched posture, and said in a deep, mellow voice, "Evenin', young sir. You look like the floor just beat you in a fight." Ethan tried for a smirk but it came out flat. "Guess I'm just not cut out for this." Coleman rested his mop against the wall and gave him a look, not pity, not judgment, just curiosity. "Not cut out for what?" Ethan gestured vaguely toward the math wing. "Tests. School. All of it. My brain just doesn't work that way." Coleman chuckled softly. "I don't believe in don't work that way. I believe in wrong doors. You been knockin' on the wrong ones, that's all." Ethan frowned. "Doors?" Coleman leaned against the wall, lowering his voice like he was about to tell him something important. "Son, you're tryin' to remember answers when you ain't even askin' the right questions. School teaches you to store things in your head, but real learning? That's when you can teach it to somebody else. Try that, next time you study, pretend you gotta explain it to someone who don't know nothin' about it. When you get stuck, that's the hole you gotta fill. Patch the holes, and the whole thing stands." Ethan almost laughed, it sounded too easy. "So, teach it to someone else? What if I can't even explain it to myself?" "That's how you know where to start," Coleman said simply. "Try it tonight. Worst that happens, you waste a few hours. Best that happens, well, you surprise yourself." There was a spark in Coleman's eyes as he picked up the mop again, a quiet confidence that made Ethan want to try, even if it was ridiculous. That night, instead of slumping in front of his laptop and scrolling through notes he barely understood, Ethan grabbed one of his little sister's stuffed animals, a lopsided teddy bear with a missing ear, and propped it on his desk. "Okay," he muttered, "fractions." He started explaining them to the bear, haltingly at first, tripping over his own words, realizing halfway through that he didn't actually know why you flipped the second fraction when dividing. That gap made him dig into the book, not just skimming but actually hunting for the reason, like it was a clue in a mystery. When he found it, he explained it again, slower this time, until it made sense. Hours slipped by, and by the time he went to bed, the pages in his notebook were full of diagrams and little doodles that somehow made the concept stick. For the first time in months, Ethan felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't doomed to fail. He didn't know it yet, but this small, strange conversation in a quiet hallway would be the first knock on the right door, the one that would change everything.